The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a soft hiss, and Ambassador Jake Morrison walked inside with steady steps. His black suit looked simple compared to the strange clothes and natural forms of the alien beings around him. Behind Jake, his team followed quietly. Lisa Hayes carried a stack of data tablets, her brown hair pulled back in a neat style. Captain Ben Taylor wore his military uniform with pride, and Dr. Karen Walsh held her research notes close to her chest. The chamber was huge, with seats arranged in circles that went up toward the ceiling like a giant bowl. Hundreds of alien species sat in those seats, all watching the humans walk to their spot in the center. Some aliens looked like tall crystals that caught the light, others were soft and moved like giant slugs, and some glowed with their own light that changed. Colors. Jake had been coming to these meetings for 3 months now. Each time, the aliens made new demands that got harder and harder to accept. Today felt different, though. The air seemed heavy with tension, and the way the aliens looked at them made Jake feel like they were prey being studied by hunters. The Zephyrian High Speaker Veltar stood up first. Their body was made of what looked like living crystal, tall and thin, with light moving through them in strange patterns. When they spoke, their voice came out as clicks and musical tones that the translation machines changed into cold words that everyone could understand. The human species must accept new population controls, Veltar announced. Their crystal body flickered as they spoke. Your people have too many children. The Council has decided that Earth can only have half as many babies each year. Jake felt his jaw muscles tighten. Behind him, he heard Lisa take a sharp breath. They had expected tough talks, but this was asking them to control who could have families and when. The Council knows what is best for all species, continued Veltar. Humans breed too fast and use too many resources. This must stop. Before Jake could respond, another alien moved forward. This one was from the Korthax species, and it looked like a giant slug covered in slime. Its name was Golmas, and it spoke through holes in its head that made wet sounds. Human military ships are too many and too strong, Golmas said through the translator. You must destroy 7 out of every 10 ships you have. Your people are too ready to fight, and this scares other species. Captain Ben Taylor shifted in his seat. His hands made fists without him thinking about it. He had spent his whole life protecting Earth and humanity. Now these aliens wanted to take away most of the ships that kept his people safe. Ben had fought in 3 different wars to protect colonies on the edge of human space. He knew what happened. When good people could not defend themselves, Dr. Karen Walsh leaned toward Jake and whispered, "They are not asking us to change small things. They want us to stop being human." Jake nodded slightly. He had been thinking the same thing. Every demand the Council made seemed designed to take away something important about humanity. Their creativity, their independence, their ability to protect themselves, even their basic right to have families, but the worst was still coming. The Luminari delegate began to glow brighter, their whole body pulsing with waves of light in different colors. The Luminari were beings made of pure energy, and they rarely spoke directly to other species. When they did speak, it usually meant something very important. The translation of their light patterns came through the speakers around the chamber. Human emotions are too strong and change too fast. This creates chaos in the ordered systems of the Council. All humans must take medicine that will make their feelings calm and predictable. The chamber went completely quiet. Jake felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. They wanted to drug his entire species to make them easier to control. They wanted to take away the very thing that made humans special, their ability to feel deeply, to get excited about new ideas, to fight for what they believed in, to love with all their hearts. Lisa Hayes dropped one of her data tablets. The sound of it hitting the floor seemed very loud in the silent chamber. Her face had gone white, and Jake could see her hands shaking slightly. Your competitive nature disrupts the peace of other species. The Luminari continued, their light patterns pulsing faster now. Your unpredictable emotions make it hard for others to understand what you will do next. This medicine will fix these problems. Jake looked around the chamber at all the alien faces staring down at them. Some looked curious, others seemed bored, and a few appeared almost hungry as they waited to see how the humans would react. But none of them looked like they thought there was anything wrong with these demands. Dr. Karen Walsh had spent years studying alien psychology and behavior. She understood these species better than almost any other human. But even she was shocked by what she was hearing. "Jake," she whispered, "they see everything that makes us human as a disease to be cured." Captain Ben Taylor stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Ambassador," he said quietly, "with respect, these people have never had to fight for anything in their lives. They want to take away our ability to defend ourselves and then drug us so we will not care about it." Jake Morrison had been a diplomat for 20 years. He had negotiated peace treaties, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts with dozens of different groups. He believed in talking through problems and finding solutions that worked for everyone. But what he was hearing today was not negotiation. It was surrender disguised as compromise. The chamber stayed quiet as every being waited for his answer. Some aliens leaned forward in their seats, clearly expecting the humans to agree like they always had before with smaller demands. Others seemed to be studying the human reactions like scientists watching an interesting experiment. Jake thought about his daughter back on Earth, who was expecting her first child. He thought about the soldiers like Ben who put their lives at risk to keep humanity safe. He thought about scientists like Karen who pushed the boundaries of knowledge because they were curious and excited about learning new things. Then he thought about a humanity that had half as many children, no way, to protect themselves and dulled emotions that made them easy to control. That was not humanity anymore. That was something else wearing a human shape. Jake Morrison stood up slowly and looked directly at High Speaker Veltar. His voice was calm, but everyone in the chamber could hear the strength in it. "No," the single word seemed to echo in the huge chamber. Several aliens made surprise sounds in their own languages. The Zephyrian's crystal body flickered rapidly, which Jake had learned meant they were confused or upset. "Clarification required," Veltar said, their musical voice getting higher. "Your response suggests you will not follow council requirements." "You heard me correctly," Jake replied, gathering up his papers and putting them in his briefcase. "The human delegation is leaving these talks." He turned to face the entire chamber, looking up at hundreds of alien faces that had suddenly become very alert. "We came here 3 months ago because we wanted to work with you. We wanted to be part of something bigger than just humanity. We believed in cooperation and mutual respect." Jake's voice got stronger as he continued. "But what you are offering is not cooperation. You want us to have fewer children, destroy our defenses, and take drugs that will change who we are as a species. You want us to stop being human so that you feel more comfortable around us." Lisa Hayes had stood up too, as had Ben and Karen. The 4 humans looked very small in the enormous chamber, but they stood straight and proud. "That is the one thing we will never do," Jake said firmly. "We will not stop being human to earn your acceptance." As the human delegation walked toward the exit, Jake turned back one last time. The chamber was buzzing with alien voices speaking in dozens of different languages. Some sounded angry, others confused, and a few seemed almost frightened. "You made a mistake," Jake said, his words carrying clearly through the noise. "You could have had humanity as partners and friends. Instead, you tried to turn us into something we are not. Now you will have to deal with the galaxy without us." The massive doors slid shut behind them with a soft hiss, leaving the Galactic Council to face the consequences of their demands. For the first time in their long history, a species had simply walked away rather than submit to their will. Jake Morrison and his team walked down the long hallway toward their ship, their footsteps echoing in the corridors of a council station that had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. 3 weeks had passed since Jake Morrison walked out of the council chambers, and now he stood in the most important room on Earth. The Oval Office felt different in the early morning light, with President Helen Carter sitting behind her desk, reading reports that would change humanity's future forever. "Show me what we are dealing with," President Carter said, her gray hair catching the sunlight that came through the thick windows. She had been president for 6 years, but she had never faced a crisis like this one. General Paul Richards stepped forward and turned on the big display screen that covered most of one wall. Pictures and numbers appeared showing ships and space stations all across the galaxy. The aliens expected us to come back and say we were sorry within a few days. Instead, we have not talked to them at all. Jake Morrison loosened his tie and sat down in one of the chairs facing the president's desk. After months of breathing recycled air on the alien station, being back on Earth felt good. The Zephyrians have tried to contact us 17 times just yesterday. Every message says the same thing. We need to come back and have useful discussions with them. Dr. Karen Walsh opened her tablet and showed everyone the data she had been studying. The alien psychology reports we have been working on show something interesting. Most council species have never met a civilization that would choose to be alone rather than do what they were told. They literally do not understand why we left. Captain Ben Taylor added his own information to the discussion. Our listening posts in deep space are picking up lots of radio chatter between alien fleets. They sound confused and they are starting to worry. President Carter walked over to the window and looked out at Washington, D.C. The city looked peaceful, but she knew that everything was about to change for humanity. What the aliens do not know is that we have been getting ready for this possibility for a long time. She turned around to face everyone in the room. Admiral Susan Clark, tell us about the Exodus Protocol. Admiral Clark had been working all night, but her uniform still looked perfect. She was one of the smartest military minds humanity had, and she had been planning for this day for years. For the past 5 years, we have been quietly building colonies and mining operations in deep space where the Council cannot watch us. If they wanted to treat us like children who could not behave, we got ready to move out of their house. Dr. Walsh pulled up star maps on her tablet that showed systems far beyond Council space. Our archaeology teams, led by Dr. Tom Baker, have found 17 star systems that have old ruins but no current alien presence. These could be perfect places for us to expand and grow. Jake smiled for the first time since returning to Earth. The funny thing is that they spent so much time telling us what we could not do that they never bothered to learn what we could. General Richards pointed to red areas on the big map. Our withdrawal has already created problems for them. 3 different mining disputes have started in areas where human negotiators usually kept the peace. The Korthik and Zephyrians are fighting with each other over who controls the trade routes. President Carter nodded with a grim expression. How long before they realize they need us more than we need them? Dr. Walsh looked at her economic data. Based on our computer models, 6 months before small problems become big crises. 18 months before their whole peacekeeping system starts to fall apart. Captain Taylor stood up straighter. Madam President, with your permission, I would like to speed up the colony ship construction program. If we are going to do this, let us do it the right way. President Carter's face showed the same determination that had made her a successful leader. Approved. Ladies and gentlemen, if the Council wants to treat humanity like a problem, then we will solve ourselves right out of their equation. As the meeting ended and people started to leave, Jake Morrison stayed behind. Helen, are we making the right choice? President Carter looked back at him with serious eyes. Jake, they wanted to use drugs to change the brains of every human being to make us easier to control. What choice did they really leave us? Meanwhile, in a secret facility on Mars, construction teams were working around the clock on projects that had been planned for years but never built. The Red Planet's domes provided perfect cover for humanity's most ambitious undertaking yet. Colony ships that had existed only as blueprints were now being assembled in massive construction bays. The new Boston and Prairie Dawn were nearly complete, each one capable of carrying 50,000 people and everything they would need to start new civilizations. Admiral Clark stood in the observation deck of the Mars shipyard, watching welding sparks fly as workers put the finishing touches on humanity's first true interstellar colony vessels. Status report, she said into her communication device. "Admiral, the new Boston will be ready for launch in 8 weeks," came the reply from the chief engineer. "Prairie Dawn will follow 2 weeks after that." On Earth's moon, another secret project was reaching completion. Dr. Tom Baker led a team of scientists and engineers who had been studying alien technology for years. They had learned things about faster-than-light travel and communication that even the Council did not know. "The quantum communication array is online," Dr. Baker reported to his team. "We can now talk to our colonies instantly across any distance." The Council still uses message drones that take weeks to travel between systems. Back on Earth, President Carter was meeting with leaders from every major nation. The conference room was full of presidents, prime ministers, and other heads of government who had to make the biggest decision in human history. "The question before us is simple," President Carter said to the assembled leaders. "Do we go back to the Council and accept their demands, or do we bet everything on our ability to survive and thrive on our own?" The president of Brazil spoke. "First, my people remember what it was like to be told by others how to live. We will not accept that again." The Prime Minister of Japan agreed. "Our ancestors chose isolation once before when foreign powers tried to change who we were. It worked then, and it can work now." One by one, every leader in the room agreed. Humanity would not return to the Council. They would forge their own path among the stars. As news of the decision spread across Earth, something unexpected happened. Instead of panic or fear, people felt excited and hopeful. Volunteers for the colony ships numbered in the millions. Scientists and engineers worked extra hours to speed up construction. Children drew pictures of the new worlds they might live on someday. Dr. Karen Walsh studied the public reaction from her office at the Space Sciences Institute. "It is remarkable," she told her assistant. "When faced with the choice between submission and independence, humans choose independence every time." The assistant nodded. "What do you think will happen to the Council?" Dr. Walsh looked at the data streaming in from their deep space monitoring stations. "According to our psychological profiles, most Council species have never had to solve problems without being told what to do by a higher authority. When their system starts to break down, they will not know how to fix it." 3 months after walking out of the Council chambers, Jake Morrison received a message that made him laugh out loud. It was from High Speaker Veltar, and it was the 7th attempt that week to get humanity to return. The message was translated from the Zephyrian's musical language. "Human Ambassador Morrison, the Council acknowledges that previous discussions may have been too hasty. We invite renewed dialogue with more flexible terms." Jake deleted the message without replying. President Carter had been clear: no communication with the Council until they were ready to treat humanity as equals, not as problems to be solved. Instead, Jake focused on the reports coming in from the advance teams already heading to their new homes among the stars. For the first time in his career as a diplomat, he was helping to build something new instead of trying to fix something that was already broken. The Council had pushed too far. Humanity had left their talks, and now the real adventure was just beginning. 6 months had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council, and the cracks in their perfect system were becoming impossible to ignore. In the emergency session chamber of the Council station, High Speaker Veltar faced the worst crisis their crystalline species had ever seen in 3,000 years of galactic politics. "The mining disputes in the Outer Rim systems have turned into real fighting," reported the Altarian delegate. Their bug-like body had multiple eyes that could look in different directions at the same time, and right now they were all focused on different crisis reports. Without human mediators, the Korthic and Hegemony fleets started shooting at each other yesterday. Veltar's crystal body flickered with colors that other species had learned meant frustration and confusion. Previous information indicated that human mediators were not essential for maintaining peace. Previous information was wrong, admitted Gulmas, the Korthic representative. Their slug-like form left wet trails of worry slime on the chamber floor. Human psychological patterns made them uniquely good at solving fights between species that could not understand each other. Far from the failing Council, humanity was thriving in ways that would have shocked their former diplomatic partners. On Mars, Dr. Karen Walsh stood in the research dome looking out at the red landscape while she prepared her report for Earth's leadership. "Our deep space colonies are doing better than we ever hoped," she said into the communication device that connected her to leaders across the solar system. Colony ships New Boston and Prairie Dawn have successfully established settlements in the Kepler 442 and Volf 1061 systems. Admiral Susan Clark's image appeared on the screen from the bridge of the EDS Washington, humanity's newest and most advanced deep space exploration vessel. The ancient ruins that Dr. Tom Baker's team discovered in the Kepler system are not just old buildings. They are complete facilities with technology we are only beginning to understand. President Carter, now governing from the new lunar base, called New Geneva, reviewed the reports with satisfaction. "What is our status with the trading partners who used to work with the Council?" Captain Ben Taylor, commanding the exploration fleet from the bridge of the Eds Lincoln, provided the answer that made everyone smile. 17 independent star systems have contacted us through secret channels. They want to establish direct trade relationships with us, completely bypassing the Council. Back in Council space, things were getting worse every day. The Luminari delegate, whose body was made of living light, pulsed with distress patterns as they addressed the emergency assembly. Translation of light speech: our meditation colonies in the vegan star systems report serious psychological problems among Luminari populations. Investigation shows the cause is the absence of human emotional diversity patterns from nearby systems, which is disrupting our species' mental balance. Veltar processed this information with growing alarm. Their crystal form flickered rapidly. Clarification needed. Human presence was previously assessed as psychologically disruptive to Council member species. Previous assessment was completely incorrect, the Luminari delegate pulsed urgently. Human emotional complexity provided necessary psychological stimulation for Luminari mental health. Without it, our thoughts become too similar and this creates dangerous mental stagnation. Dr. Karen Walsh would have found the alien problem fascinating under different circumstances. From her research station orbiting Saturn, she was documenting something that had never been seen before in the study of alien societies. "It appears," she recorded in her personal research log, "that human psychological diversity served as a kind of mental ecosystem stabilizer for several Council species. Our chaotic emotional patterns were not disruptive at all. They were essential for maintaining psychological health in mixed species environments. The revelation came too late to easily fix the problems." On the Council station, emergency meetings were happening every day as the negative effects of humanity's absence spread throughout their carefully organized civilization. Trade routes that had been managed by human logistics companies fell into complete chaos. Alien species that had relied on human efficiency and problem-solving skills found themselves unable to coordinate even simple shipping schedules. Cargo ships sat in space for weeks waiting for clearance that never came. Diplomatic crises that human mediators once solved in a few days now went on for weeks without resolution. The Council had always assumed that their rigid rules and procedures were what kept peace between different species. Now they discovered that human flexibility and creativity had been the real key to making their system work. Most critically, the psychological stability of multiple Council species was falling apart without what they now called the controlled chaos of human presence. Species that had evolved in isolation were discovering that they needed the unpredictable energy of human emotions and thoughts to maintain their own mental health. High Speaker Veltar, for the first time in their centuries-long life, experienced something close to panic as they realized how badly they had miscalculated. The Synthery, a species of artificial beings that looked like robots, reported mechanical failures in their logic systems. Human unpredictability algorithms were integrated into Synthery decision-making processes, they announced through their electronic speakers. Without human behavioral data, Synthery logic systems becoming too rigid and failing to adapt to changing conditions. Even the proud Draconi, warrior beings who looked like giant lizards, were having problems. "Our battle fleets report decreased tactical effectiveness," their representative growled. Human strategic thinking patterns provided creative solutions. that pure draconian military doctrine cannot replicate. Dr. Tom Baker, working from the ancient ruins in the Kepler system, was making discoveries that explained everything. President Carter, the technology we are finding here tells an incredible story. These ruins were not built by extinct species. They were built by civilizations that left council space when they became advanced enough to create something better. The implications hit everyone on the communication network at the same time. President Carter spoke slowly. You are saying that leaving the council is a natural step for civilizations that grow beyond their system? More than that, Dr. Baker continued with excitement. The technology suggests that these departed civilizations eventually formed something far more advanced than the council. We are not just finding ruins, we are finding a trail of breadcrumbs leading to something amazing. Meanwhile, the council's desperation was reaching new levels every day. They had authorized something that had never been done before in their history: direct contact with individual human colonies, trying to bypass Earth's government entirely. Captain Ben Taylor, commanding the defense fleet at New Boston Colony, received the first such transmission. The Zephyrian diplomat who appeared on his screen looked nothing like the arrogant high speaker of 6 months ago. Human Captain Taylor, the translator converted the alien's increasingly frantic communications. The Zephyrian hegemony requests emergency mediation services for critical trade disputes. Payment offered, exclusive mining rights to the entire Altair star system. Ben's response was calm and measured. Our species no longer provides mediation services to council members. Perhaps you should have thought about that before demanding we stop being human. Similar conversations were happening across all the human colonies as desperate council species offered increasingly valuable payments for even the smallest amount of human assistance. The breaking point came when 3 major council species announced they were leaving the organization entirely. The Draconi Cluster, the Vorthan Republics, and most shocking of all, the Ancient Ethereal Collective all submitted formal notices that they were withdrawing from council membership. The council experiment has failed, the Ethereal Collective announced through their translucent representatives. We seek direct communication with human leadership to discuss alternative arrangements for galactic cooperation. High Speaker Veltar, watching their entire civilization crumble, authorized the most desperate measure in council history: a formal apology and plea for humanity's return to save them from complete collapse. The message reached President Carter as she stood in the observation dome of Luna Base, watching Earth rise over the lunar horizon. The once proud aliens who had demanded humanity's submission were now begging for forgiveness and offering terms that would have been unthinkable just months before. But as President Carter read through the Council's desperate offer of complete control over their military and government, she smiled with grim satisfaction. The aliens still did not understand the most important thing about humanity. They had already found something much better than anything the Council could offer. 8 months after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council faced its first real threat of complete destruction in over 3,000 years. In the deepest emergency command center of the Council Station, High Speaker Veltar stood before warning displays that showed red danger signals across half the known galaxy. System failure continues to spread, reported the Synthery delegate, their robot-like form clicking and whirring with mechanical distress. Economic collapse index now at 67% and climbing every day. Civil unrest has broken out in 43 star systems. 3 minor wars have started over basic resource allocation disputes. The Altarian delegation leader's many eyes darted between different crisis reports, trying to process all the bad news at once. Our psychological monitoring stations confirm the worst fears. 14 different Council species are showing signs of collective mental breakdown. The absence of human cognitive patterns has created dangerous zones of psychological sameness. Meanwhile, far beyond the reach of Council space, humanity was discovering possibilities that would have amazed their former diplomatic partners. In the newly established New California system, Governor Lisa Hayes stood on the observation deck of Orbital Station Freedom, watching the construction of humanity's first completely independent deep space shipyard. Admiral Clark, give me a status report on our exploration fleets," she requested through the quantum communication array that connected human settlements across dozens of star systems. Admiral Susan Clark's response came from the bridge of the EDS Constitution, now operating 3 full star systems beyond the farthest edge of Council territory. "We have made contact with something called the Meridian Collective, which is an alliance of species that broke away from Council authority about 200 years ago. They are very interested in forming official relationships with humanity." President Carter, now permanently based on Luna to better coordinate humanity's expanding interstellar civilization, reviewed reports that painted a completely different picture from the Council's struggles. "Dr. Baker, what is the current status of your ancient technology research?" Dr. Tom Baker's archaeological teams had been making discoveries that changed everything humans thought they knew about galactic civilization. "Madam President, the ruins we have been studying were not built by species that died out long ago. They were built by previous civilizations that left Council space when they reached sufficient technological and social maturity." The implications hit everyone in the communication network like a physical blow. President Carter spoke the words slowly as she processed their meaning. "You are telling me that leaving the Council is actually a normal part of how civilizations develop." "Much more than that," Dr. Baker continued, his excitement clear even through the communication delay. "The technology we are finding suggests that these departed civilizations eventually created something far more advanced than the Council ever was. We are not just finding old ruins, we are finding a clear path that leads to joining something incredible." Back in Council space, desperation had reached levels that would have been unthinkable before humanity's departure. High Speaker Veltar had authorized direct contact with individual human colonies, completely ignoring Earth's government in their frantic attempts to get help. Captain Ben Taylor, now commanding the perimeter defense fleet from the thriving New Boston colony, received one of these desperate transmissions. The Zephyrian diplomat who appeared on his communication screen looked nothing like the proud and demanding aliens of just 8 months ago. "Human Captain Taylor," the translator converted the aliens' increasingly panicked communications. "The Zephyrian hegemony offers emergency payment for basic mediation services. Compensation includes exclusive mining rights to the Altair system plus complete technological sharing agreements." Ben's response was delivered with calm professionalism. "Our species no longer provides any services to Council members or their affiliates. Perhaps you should have considered the consequences before demanding that we chemically alter our brains to make us easier for you to control." Similar desperate conversations were happening at human colonies throughout the galaxy as panicked. Council species offered increasingly valuable concessions for even the smallest amount of human assistance. The aliens who had once demanded humanity change everything about themselves were now willing to give up almost anything to get them back. Dr. Karen Walsh, now directing all xenobiological research from the massive New Geneva Research Complex, was documenting the psychological collapse with scientific fascination, mixed with genuine concern for the suffering alien populations. "Personal research log, day 247 after withdrawal," she recorded. "Council species are experiencing what can only be described as civilization-wide depression. Human emotional complexity apparently served as a kind of psychological vitamin that multiple alien species required for basic mental health. The final breaking point came when 3 of the most powerful Council species announced their intention to leave the organization entirely. The Draconi cluster had been founding members for over 2 millennia. The Vorthan republics controlled major trade routes throughout the galaxy. But most shocking of all was the Ethereal Collective, the ancient energy beings who had been the wise counselors of the Council since its very beginning. The Council experiment has reached its natural end. The Ethereal Collective announced through their translucent representatives, their usual calm wisdom replaced by urgent necessity. "We formally request immediate audience with human leadership to discuss alternative arrangements for galactic governance." The announcement sent shockwaves through what remained of the Council. If the Ethereals were abandoning the system they had helped create, then there truly was no hope for its survival. High Speaker Veltar Faced with the complete dissolution of everything their civilization had built over thousands of years, authorized the most desperate and humiliating measure in Council history. They would formally apologize to humanity and offer them essentially unlimited power if they would only return to save the collapsing system. The message reached President Carter as she stood in the observation dome of Luna Base, watching the blue marble of Earth slowly rotate against the star-filled darkness of space. The communication was marked with the highest priority codes and came with enough encryption to protect a military invasion plan. When she opened it, President Carter found herself reading something that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. The proud Galactic Council, which had demanded humanity submit to population controls, military reduction, and chemical brain modification, was now offering to make humans the dominant species in galactic politics. The Council acknowledges serious errors in previous assessments of human requirements, the message began, translated from High Speaker Veltar as desperate musical communications. Full autonomy granted to human colonies and territories. Permanent Council leadership positions offered to human representatives. Complete military command authority over all Council forces available for human commanders. The offer went on for pages, essentially giving humanity control over every aspect of galactic civilization in exchange for saving the Council from complete collapse. They were offering to make humans the rulers of the very system that had tried to suppress their basic nature, but as President Carter read through the increasingly desperate concessions, her expression remained calm and unmoved. She had seen this pattern before in human history, powerful groups that only offered respect and equality when they were facing destruction. The aliens still did not understand the most fundamental truth about humanity. They thought this was about power and control, about who got to make the rules and give the orders. They were offering humanity dominance over other species, never realizing that humans had no interest in becoming the next version of what the Council had been. President Carter closed the communication without responding and looked back out at Earth, where her species had learned the hard lessons about freedom, dignity, and mutual respect through centuries of struggle and growth. The Council's desperate offer missed the point entirely. Humanity had not left to gain power over others. They had left to find something better than the whole system of dominance and submission that the Council represented. And based on Dr. Baker's discoveries, they were very close to finding exactly that. One full year after walking out of the Council chambers, Ambassador Jake Morrison stood in a completely different kind of diplomatic facility. The new Geneva station orbited Luna like a shining city in space, serving as the headquarters for humanity's growing alliance with species that had chosen independence over Council submission. The main conference room was filled with representatives from 12 different species, and not one of them had ever been a Council member. The Meridian Collective had grown into something far more dynamic and creative than the rigid Council had ever managed to become. The Draconi mining expedition has confirmed massive rare element deposits in the outer spiral arm, reported Commander Lisa Hayes, who now served as Director of Colonial Operations for all human settlements. The Vorthan republics are requesting joint exploration rights so we can work together. Ambassador Jake reviewed the proposal with deep satisfaction, approved immediately. Unlike our former colleagues in the Council, we actually believe in partnerships that benefit everyone involved. 3 months earlier, the Galactic Council had made their final and most desperate offer. High Speaker Veltar had personally traveled to the very edge of human space in a last attempt to save their dying civilization, bringing with them concessions that would have been unthinkable just 2 years before. President Carter had received the alien delegation in the same observation dome where she had first read their desperate messages. The Zephyrian's crystal form had flickered with what humans now recognized as barely controlled panic and fear. Human leader Carter, the translator, had rendered Veltar's frantic musical communications. The Council acknowledges complete error in all previous assessments. Human species integration is absolutely crucial for galactic stability. All terms are completely negotiable with no restrictions. President Carter's response had been delivered with quiet dignity and unmovable resolve. "Hi, Speaker. When we first came to you seeking partnership and mutual respect, you demanded that we change everything fundamental about what made us human. Now that you desperately need us, you offer us complete control over everyone else. You still do not understand what this is really about." She had gestured toward the viewport that showed the busy activity of New Geneva Station, with ships from dozens of species coming and going in peaceful cooperation. "We never wanted to control other species or rule over them. We wanted to work together with species who actually respect what we bring to the relationship. The Council offers total autonomy and complete authority over all galactic affairs," Veltar had pressed with increasing desperation. "The Council had their chance to treat us with respect," President Carter had replied firmly. "We have found something much better than anything you could ever offer." Now, a full year later, that something better was transforming entire regions of the galaxy. The Meridian Collective had grown from a small handful of Council refugees to a thriving alliance of 37 different species. Unlike the Council's rigid hierarchy and endless rules, the Collective operated on simple principles of mutual respect and voluntary cooperation. Dr. Corinne Walsh, now serving as the Collective's Chief Science Officer, presented her latest research findings to the Alliance leadership. The ancient ruins that Dr. Tom Baker's teams have been studying tell an incredible story that spans thousands of years. Every few millennia, the most advanced civilizations in this galaxy naturally outgrow the Council model and move on to join something far better. We are simply following a pattern that has been repeated dozens of times throughout galactic history. Admiral Susan Clark added her military perspective from the bridge of the EDS Enterprise, humanity's first truly advanced exploration vessel built with technology learned from the ancient ruins. Our long-range reconnaissance missions have made direct contact with something called the Ascendant Alliance, which is the collection of all the species that have left Council space over the past 5,000 years. They have been waiting for U.S. to take this step and are requesting formal diplomatic contact. The implications were absolutely staggering to everyone who heard them. The Galactic Council, which had always presented itself as the highest pinnacle of galactic civilization, was actually just a waiting room for species that were mature enough to join something infinitely greater. Captain Ben Taylor, now commanding the joint human-alien exploration fleets, provided the final piece of the incredible puzzle. The Ascendant Alliance possesses technology that makes Council capabilities look like primitive stone tools. They have faster than light communication across any distance, complete matter transformation abilities, and even limited time manipulation. They have been patiently waiting for us to evolve beyond the Council stage. Jake Morrison looked around the conference room at representatives from species the Council had dismissed as too chaotic or insufficiently compliant for their rigid system. The diversity of thought, culture, and capability in this single room exceeded anything the sterile Council chambers had ever achieved in their thousands of years of existence. So the Council pushed too far. We left their talks. And now they are facing exactly the kind of regret they deserve, Jake said with a slight smile. But more importantly, we have discovered our real place in the galaxy. President Carter's image appeared on the main communication display from Earth, where she was overseeing the final preparations for humanity's most ambitious project in their entire history. "Distinguished representatives of all species," she announced formally, "I am extremely pleased to report that our formal application to join the Ascendant Alliance has been officially accepted. Humanity and all of our collective partners have been invited to join the real galactic community." The conference room erupted in a dozen different expressions of pure joy as species that had been told they were not good enough for the Council discovered they were actually ready for something infinitely better and more advanced. High Speaker Veltar, still monitoring human communications from the increasingly desperate and failing Council station, watched their civilization's new trajectory with something that could only be described as complete despair. The Council had demanded that humanity change to fit into their system, never realizing that their system itself was the fundamental problem. In the end, the Council's greatest mistake was not underestimating humanity's stubborn independence or their refusal to submit. Their real error was failing to recognize that the species they were trying to fix and control were actually ready to graduate to something the Council would never be mature enough to understand, or join. As the Meridian collective ships prepared for their historic journey to Ascendant Alliance space. The last transmission from the dissolving Council territory was a simple message that arrived with the lowest priority coding. Final request for reconsideration of previous decisions, all terms infinitely flexible with no conditions whatsoever. Ambassador. Jake Morrison read the message on his personal tablet and deleted it without bothering to reply. Humanity had learned the most important lesson in galactic politics. Sometimes, the best response to those who do not value you is to find those who truly do. The stars ahead held infinite possibilities and incredible adventures. And for the first time since leaving Earth's solar system, humanity was exactly where they belonged. The Council had pushed too far, but in doing so, they had accidentally pushed humanity toward their true destiny among the stars.